A brief history of visitation to the Earth. To understand the present and to be prepared for the future, there are certain things from the past that must be clarified and that you must learn to see. The first is that the world has been visited for a very long time. These visitations have been from a number of different races for different purposes. Some have come here to gain biological samples from the immensely rich diversity of life in the world. Others have come here to hide things, to store things beyond the awareness of the native peoples of the world. At different points, others have established bases here temporarily and on a few occasions have tried, in more recent history, to educate or to influence early human civilizations. These visitations were brief and were not sustained for long. The bases that were established here were only mainly to gain a greater understanding of the Earth's geological and biological realities. Attempts to influence early civilizations proved to be unsuccessful. However, a great deal has been learned about the natural world here, and many biological elements have been taken from the world periodically to support the emergence of life elsewhere. Those races who are present in the world today represent a different set of forces from those who have visited humanity in the past. Humanity has lived in isolation throughout its entire evolution with only very brief encounters with races from beyond the world. Primitive peoples had a great capacity for recognizing the forces of nature, but their sophistication and understanding, technology and communication were limited. Therefore, with only a few exceptions, attempts to communicate with them were never made. They were deemed unready to engage in meaningful dialogue. Yet certain native groups were given wisdom about life existing beyond the world. This was demonstrated to them by visitations and by the giving of gifts. This existed in tribal nations long before and, in some cases, after the existence of early human civilizations. Since technology is a very important part of life in the universe, particularly regarding travel and communication, attempts to influence these early civilizations proved to be unsuccessful. It would have to wait until a much later time for humanity to develop technologically and to develop social structures sophisticated enough and sufficiently large enough for greater communication to be established. For nearly all the races who visited the world in the past, and for those races who are here at present, the world presents a very great challenge. Living in space for very long periods of time in sterile environments, races coming to the world are faced with an immense difficulty. The degree and the diversity of biological agents in the world make this planet, though extremely conducive to life, very hazardous for any visitor who is not adapted to it. Even races with very advanced technology cannot protect themselves against the diversity of life and the number of biological agents that exist in this terrestrial environment. This has made actual living in the world extremely difficult and, in most cases, impossible for all the races who have visited here. It would take them generations to adapt to living in an environment such as this. And only through a prolonged genetic program of bonding with the native people could they have a real possibility of living in a world of such diverse and complex biological forces. It may seem strange to people that the world would be so hazardous for an advanced race who did not evolve here. But it is true nonetheless. If you live in a sterile environment, you can visit other sterile environments, or you can visit environments where there is a very limited diversity of life, if you are prepared for them. Biological creatures are vulnerable to contamination everywhere in the universe. There is no technology, no medical technology, that can protect a biological entity of any kind from new and unexpected influences. This has made your world an extremely difficult place to visit for any length of time or to live in without a very advanced technology. And to maintain this technology far from the source of one's own civilization is very difficult. The world does not provide the technology and the technological inputs that would be necessary for a foreign race to sustain a technological environment here for very long. And the hazards of contamination would be extremely great. For no matter how advanced one's technology, one can still succumb to unseen biological agents such as bacteria and viruses. This makes the approach to a world such as yours a very difficult proposition for any race. Even other races who live in environments of biological diversity, and who have been able to maintain those environments and not strip them of resources, would find this to be very challenging. Visitations to the world have been brief and infrequent, carried out by different groups for different purposes. Some have come to gain biological resources, some for experimentation, and some to establish a base of influence. But none of them have been able to be sustained for very long. As a hiding place, the world has offered certain races great advantages. Being densely covered with foliage in many places, and inhabited by native peoples who were superstitious and whose existence was very local within certain areas, has made it possible to hide things of great value here, and certain races have taken advantage of this. Even today there are things hidden in the world beyond human awareness that have been here for a very long time. However, now as humanity's technology is rapidly accelerating, the risk of these things being discovered has increased. Many of these treasures buried here for ages have been removed from the world in recent times, especially in the last century. Humanity's ability to discern the existence of objects, metals and machinery deeply buried even in the ocean, is increasing rapidly, and this has required certain races to return to the Earth to remove things of value that have been stored here for a long time. Despite the difficulties of visiting or dwelling in this world for an advanced technological race, this world has been the focus for many races for a very long time because of its biological diversity and its strategic position in this well-inhabited part of the universe. The Earth has been observed for a very long time. It is of great interest to different groups for different purposes. The ascension of humankind and the rapid development of human technology over the past 2 centuries have brought different forces to the world. Forces who are looking for the possibility to gain advantage and to unite with humanity to gain control of an emerging world such as this. With few exceptions, this was never the focus B-15 for humanity lived in a primitive state and had not yet built any technology or system of communication that other races could use or benefit from. Native peoples were only of interest in terms of their adaptive capabilities and their knowledge of the local environment. Beyond this, there was no possibility of really uniting with them. The attempt at uniting with human beings genetically, therefore, has only been a very recent phenomenon. In the past, the Earth had been viewed as a storehouse of biological wealth. Yet attempts to establish permanent residences here have failed as the visitors became affected by their biological environment. Even their advanced technology eventually could not protect them from these forces of nature. And the possibility of introducing foreign biological agents into their planets of origin and into their bases in space proved to be far too great, grievous and risky for settlements to be established here for very long. For should a biological agent infect members of an expeditionary force, they could carry these agents to their centers of operation, thus affecting everyone involved. People have adapted to the world's environment to a very large degree, but in the history of the movement of peoples within the world, you have seen the power and the impact of infectious diseases in destroying entire populations as people from different continents came in contact with one another. This is a very great hazard in space and continues to be a great hazard. Technological races function in largely sterile environments. They engage with each other in sterile environments. Commerce between nations is rarely carried out on the surface of their worlds unless those worlds have been stripped of their biological agents, or they are planets that never had the presence of a biological evolution. They are simply being used as bases of operation. In the affairs of engagement and commerce in the universe, contact is nearly always made on board craft of some kind or in environments that are well protected and secure from the invasion of other biological agents. The spreading of viruses has been a serious problem in the past in many regions of space, particularly in well-inhabited regions such as your own.